Good morning, Packers fans, and welcome into a special draft weekend edition of the Pancakes and Packers morning show, where we're going to recap everything that happened on day 2 of the Packers NFL draft yesterday, and take a look ahead at what's in store for day 3 here. Starting off right away, we ended up doubling up at linebacker. We ended up picking up our change of pace running back, and we addressed the remaining hole in the secondary with that safety pick of Javon Bullard. So let's get right into talking about some of those moves. So the Packers were very patient at the beginning of the second round, as a lot of teams were giving up a lot of picks to move up and down in that early portion of the second round. There was as many trades in the first 10 picks of the second round as there were all of the first night of the NFL draft. So a lot of people coveted specific guys to move up and around to make those picks. The Packers ended up being patient, waited, and at 41 or right before 41, traded back to pick up a couple extra picks, which ended up picking up a 5th round and a 6th round pick, and that's pick 168 and pick 190 in exchange for moving down just a handful of spots to 45. The Saints traded up with them to pick up Kool-Aid McKinstry, who Packers fans thought might be on the Packers' radar as somebody that they would want to pick. The pick before the Packers pick was up was Cooper DeJean to the Eagles. The Eagles traded up, fearing that the Packers would end up taking DeJean. According to Brian Gutekunst, the details of the trade back with the Saints was handled well before the DeJean pick was made. You can believe that as much as you want. That might just be him, covering for things there. But ultimately, they ended up getting a little bit better value for the guy that they coveted most at the linebacker position in this draft, and that was Edgerrin Cooper, the top linebacker off the board, rangy, athletic, physical linebacker out of Texas A&M. And let's go ahead and take a look at no, that's not the one I wanted. Nor is that. Whatever, we'll go here. Edgerrin Cooper. So take a look real quick, and it's 6'3", 230, 22-year-old linebacker out of Texas A&M. A lot of athleticism. A lot of the question marks that people had about him was how well would he play in going backwards in coverage, because he didn't do that as much at Texas A&M. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. His athleticism is going to make up for that, and they're going to coach him up good. I think he's an outstanding partner to pair with Quay Walker in the middle of that defense, because of the fact that they're both so athletic, and while they bring slightly different things to the table, I think their pairing is going to make them a really dynamic linebacking duo there for the Packers. So great pick for the Packers to pick up Edgerrin Cooper with 45, picking up 2 extra picks, which, if you remember last year in that trade down where they ended up picking up Jaden Reed a little bit later in the second round, those 2 picks turned into Dontavion Wicks and Carl Brooks. So what's in store for the guys that the Packers are going to pick, with those picks, 168 and 190 on day 3 of the draft. Then from there, we were back up again at pick 58. And with pick 58, the Packers chose Javon Bullard, the safety out of Georgia. And this is the guy that I've talked a good bit about for the Packers as somebody that they would absolutely love. I like the fact that he's still 21 years old. He'll be 22 somewhat into the early parts of the season, but really versatile secondary player. Graded out really well in the slot, played more in the slot, not this past year, but in 2022, but still played heavily in the slot in 2023 as well, but added to his repertoire the deep safety looks that, that he can end up playing a bit of, and have that versatility alongside Xavier McKinney on this Packers back end. The fact that he does well in the slot and shows that he's got some man coverage skills there is really beneficial for the Packers. And I think he's going to be in the mix right away in that safety room. And they're going to, I think, move Xavier McKinney around. They're going to move Bullard around, and they're going to move Keyshawn Nixon Keyshawn Nixon around a lot as they go through and just make things multiple and difficult on offenses to fully understand who's going to be where, and you're going to see a lot of post snap rotations and movements on this back end, I think, this year, and that is something that between Bullard, McKinney, and Keyshawn Nixon, I think, is going to be a great aspect for this Packers defense in 2024. And what just happened? Just lost my screen for a second. Here we go. We're back at it. The next pick that we had, not really a surprise, but not the guy that I was thinking the Packers were going to actually go with, and that is Marshawn Lloyd, the running back out of USC. And a dynamic running back, got their change of pace guy, definitely a quicker, burstier kind of running back than what they have with both Josh Jacobs and AJ Dillon in that backfield currently. It says here he's a starting caliber athlete per PFF. Daniel Jeremiah on the NFL broadcast definitely called him out as his number one running back in this draft class. So to get that guy with pick 88, in the third round is really good value. I think it says one thing that he'll probably have to work on here is he often fails to see cutback lanes and zone blocking, which the Packers love to run zone blocking schemes. So there's some things to work on, of course, but he's electric when he has the ball in his hands, whether that's running or after the catch in passing situations. So Marshawn Lloyd, running back out of USC, was our third pick. And then the last one we had here, somebody that was, definitely lower on my radar, didn't have as good of a 2023 season as he had the year prior, and that's linebacker Tyron Hopper out of Mizzou. And you see here his grades from 2022, 77.5 versus 51.5. A little bit of one of those things where we've hit on guys that their best season wasn't their last season. And as I get into looking at Tyron a bit more post draft, I'm going to look at what were some of the situations and the circumstances behind that, because I'm assuming a 50 or 25 point drop rather in production points from the PFF grading. There's something else around that is going to tell a little bit of a story about his season. 5-year senior out of Mizzou, transferred from Florida to Missouri, started the last 2 years there. He's second team All SEC this year. He's a team captain. He did end up missing the final 3 games of the season with a shoulder injury. But it's rangy, athletic space player with terrific burst speed or pursuit speed, especially from the backside, is what Dane Brugler has to say about him. He's lean. He's still growing into his frame, which I think is something the Packers are willing to take a little bit of a chance on, because they have a lot of trust in their strength and conditioning team to get these guys into like their full-grown NFL bodies. So somebody that I think the Packers are obviously very happy to have on their roster heading into 2024, and definitely fills a need for the Packers in that linebacker room where they're just really thin at this point. Going into the draft, they just had Quay Walker, McDuffie, and then they also had like Eric Wilson. So adding some guys to work into that rotation is going to be really good for this linebacking core that's going to have more linebackers, off-ball linebackers, on the field throughout the course of the season. But now let's take a look at who's available as we head into day 3 of the draft. So initially, I thought they were going to end up taking 2 offensive linemen in the first 5 picks that they had. They ended up just going with the one. They did double up at linebacker, which shows they're serious about the fact that that's a need that they have on the roster. But I'm going to take a look at interior offensive linemen, because I think we need to shore that up a little bit. Listening to Brian Gutekunst talk about Jordan Morgan after the draft yesterday, it's clear that they think he can play tackle. I don't know if that means that they're going to prefer him at tackle, but the fact that they didn't take somebody else that is a no doubt tackle at the top of this draft indicates to me that I think they're going to prefer him at tackle, at least to start. I mean, a lot of people talk about the Packers like to take tackles to have them fail inside to guard. So give him a chance at tackle, and I think that's what the Packers plan to do with Jordan Morgan. So I think we're going to address the interior of the offensive line, which does have more depth in this draft class. And you take a look here, just at the top of this draft still, we've got Mason McCormick, super athletic guard out of South Dakota State. Cedric Van Pran, center from Georgia. You know, Goody loves his Georgia guys. They already got one off the board. Christian Mahogany, who Hafley was his head coach this past season, the past several seasons in college, rather. And then you get a little bit further down, and you've got Tanner Bordellini, center, probably guard, but that positional versatility that they really covet on the offensive line. And then also Bo Limmer, center from Arkansas, another athletic center prospect that could help shore up some of the interior of the offensive line for the Packers. I think that they're going to go with one of those spots relatively early. Our next pick, I believe, is pick 126. And then we'll have a handful of more after that. So, interior offensive line is definitely someplace that I'm looking early in this second round. I'm also thinking we're going to double up at safety here. And you look at some of these prospects that, you know, I'm sure we're all familiar with from all the mock drafts we've either watched or done ourselves. But Jaden Hicks, a lot of people really loved him earlier than, you know, what is current. You know, the fourth round is somewhere that I think a lot of people thought he might be gone by. And then you've got Dadrian Taylor Demerson, who this is about the range that everybody was thinking he was going to go. Malik Mustafa, who's a little bit more of just a kind of like box safety downhill, really aggressive, athletic guy, though. And then Keaton Oladapo, who I believe the Packers did have in for a visit. And a lot of Packers, draft nicks have fallen in love with Keaton Oladapo throughout the process. So a number of guys at safety that the Packers could still be interested in. I also think we would like to go defensive interior at some point. No, let me drop safety off there. And you see Brandon Dorless was a guy that I think, you know, fit the Packers mold of what they would want at the defensive interior. I think he's certainly on the board. You see a lot of the pre-draft stuff. People thought he was going to go a little bit earlier, average draft position 70, and here we are at pick 101. So potentially good value there. And then what other positions did I want to take a look at? Oh, I wanted to look at quarterback because there are still some of the but that next grade of quarterbacks that weren't going to be, you know, first round caliber guys in Spencer Rattler, who a lot of people really liked. And actually Daniel Jeremiah, I believe it was, talked about he wouldn't have been surprised if the Packers were interested in him at pick 91, as they did visit with him at some point along the process. I've also heard a lot of buzz about Michael Pratt, who we definitely visited with earlier in the draft process as well. So quarterback was a position that Goody talked about earlier this offseason as wanting to get back to drafting a quarterback every draft. Draft and develop those guys. They become, whether it's trade value for these guys, a quality backup quarterback, or even if they end up signing in free agency with someone else and, you know, it could be potential comp pick formulas for the Packers there. So some quality guys still here at the top. We talked a little bit in the pre-draft about Joe Milton, who just has that monster arm, is very athletic, but has accuracy issues. And we also talked about down here a good bit. Look at that familiar name, Jake Plummer, huh? And Keaton Slovis, who is, I think, more of that mold of what Sean Clifford is for the Packers. A lot of starting experience at the college level, not as high of a ceiling, but a definite backup quarterback that could be a steady guy in a pinch. And then let's take a look at cornerback, because we haven't taken a corner yet. And I know like Peter Bukowski on Locked On Packers was really high on both TJ Tampa and Kyrie Jackson. And here they are significantly later than the draft industrial complex thought they were going to be available at. So some quality cornerbacks there still at the top of this day 3. Cam Hart, who also showed really, really well at the combine. A definite different body type than what the Packers really have at that position. I believe he's like 6'3". Yeah, well, 6'2", 207. Really good length, but showed good fluidity at the combine as well. So a few names that I think are really interesting, and expect to see some more interior offensive line depth on day 3, some more potentially another linebacker, definitely some defensive backs, and they're going to look at guys that are going to potentially have a good ceiling to contribute on their primary role for the Packers, but also who are willing special teamers and definitely have the athleticism to go out and perform at those spots. Because at this point in the draft, you're taking flyers on guys who, hey, you've got somebody who has an outstanding trait, not a well-rounded player. If they were well-rounded, they would have gone earlier than they did. But you look at this point, find something that somebody has mastered in their game, and then bring them in, have them do that thing and develop their weaknesses or their deficiencies along the way. And I think that's what the Packers are going to do on the day, or on the third day of the NFL draft, and shore up some of their special teams like gunners and I won't say wedge breakers because they don't allow a wedge anymore. But special teams is definitely going to play a more important role with the changes to the kickoff rules coming up this year, because they are trying to get more kick returns into the game. So having guys that can kick cover is going to be really important. So look for those guys that are going to be core special teamers to start, but 2-3 years down the line could be big contributors for the Packers. So that's all we've got for today's episode. I hope you're enjoying the draft to this point. It's been really fun getting to see who all the different players are and where they're going. And I look forward to diving deeper into all of these, new Packers after the draft is concluded, and bringing all of that to you guys here on the Green Bay Football Corporation channel. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.